Hey, this is Bud from the Pickleball crew. We're going to depart from our usual format and bring you Ben Smith, a doctor of physical therapy in Texarkana, Arkansas, who will focus on the physiological well-being of all of us pickleball players, no matter the age. So sit back and enjoy Ben's truly dynamic presentation. Ben, welcome aboard.
Hey, I appreciate it very much. This is something that who knew we'd be talking about pickleball injuries 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, it was just a goofy sport that my kid was talking about when he came home from recess one day. Dad, you ever heard of pickleball? I had no idea what it was. And lo and behold, man, we travel to Dallas and all over, and there's professional pickleball teams and restaurants that are pickleball themed, and it's really taken off. But one of the things that we've seen is we've seen a lot of pickleball injuries in our clinic, and it tends to be the same two or three. So just thought I'd come on and share what we're seeing, and hopefully we can help you guys out. I always like to start off just kind of addressing some myths and some misunderstandings. So, pickleball is a little bit unique because, when you think of athletes, a lot of times we get hung up in the youth travel ball or the, 8 to 18-year-olds or something like that. So the first myth I would say is just that athleticism is defined by some sort of age or age gap, and there's not, man. I mean, it's my belief that our bodies were designed to be athletes from the time that you can get up and walk, till the time you're in the grave. That's what we're made for. And actually, if you look at research, the ability to produce power, is the biggest indicator of longevity of life. If you can still produce powerful movements, it's not high blood pressure. It's not your cholesterol level. It's not any of those things. It's not your body fat percentage. It is, can you produce power meaningfully? And if you can do that, your longevity goes up predictably, in correlation with that. So I love that there are sports like this that are kind of catching on with, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 up, because I think it's just great for our general population.
That's a relief to me, Ben.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, pickleball may be the fountain of youth. Who knew?
Yeah. It has been for me, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and if anytime I go through this and y'all have any questions, just jump in, because I'm easy. This is going to be real conversational. So that's the first one. The second one that I see a lot is old school. When I grew up, it was stretch really hard before you do any kind of activity. And the new research has shown, do not do that. Do not stretch hard before heavy activity. That it actually inhibits muscle activity when you stretch super deep. So what we actually want to do is a warm up instead of a stretch, and you want to stretch after you get through physical activity. So if you think about your neurological system, you think about your nerves and your central nervous system as a 2-lane highway. So information goes out, but information comes in as well. So whenever you stretch really deep, you're sending information to your brain that actually turns down the muscle tone, and it actually sets you up for injury more than it helps you. However, the cool thing is when you get through playing, your body is much more receptive to remodeling and neurological changes. So if you stretch after you play, you'll actually get permanent increases, semi-permanent, as long as you keep doing it, increases in range of motion and elasticity in those muscles. And that is regardless of age. It does not matter whether you're 8 or 88. So that all makes sense. I said a lot of things.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, well, cool deal. And then the last one this is more people probably my age, because, we still think we're young, even though we're not. I just turned 40 2 weeks ago. So is that somehow warming up makes you look old or silly, or, like you're the grandpa or grandma out there on the court or something like that. You want to know how I know something works? It's because the people that are getting paid $10 million every other game do it. So if they're doing it, if the pros are warming up and they're taking time to prime their body and take care of themselves like that, you can bet that's the best thing to do, because those owners are going to protect their assets, and their assets are their players, and the players' assets are their bodies. That's how they're making a living. So if they're warming up before their games, you should warm up before your game too. So if we're not gonna stretch heavily before a game, then what does a warm up look like? So this will be the first actionable thing that you can do. All right, so we say we're not going to stretch hard, but you obviously have to warm up somehow. So I think it's really helpful to understand how your body works when you warm up. So the first thing that you need to know is that some of your joints produce their own fluid and lubrication, and some don't. So a lot of the joints in your body only get lubricated when you take them through a full range of motion. So there's this thing that therapists say, which is motion is lotion. So when you get these arthritic patients, on up in years, or you get somebody that's been very sedentary and they have a lot of joint pain, they think that joint pain is because of those arthritic changes. And sometimes it is, but often it's because their joints are kind of gummy or dry because they're not taking them through that full range of motion and exchanging that fluid. So, if you think about it mechanically, if you have a ball bearing and only one side of it ever gets greased because you never roll it around, that's when rust sets in, it corrodes, gets pitting in it, things like that. Your body functions in much the same way. So when you're going through a warm up, that's the way you want to think about it. So I like to give frameworks and not specific lists of things to do, because if you understand the framework, then you can apply it to anything. It doesn't matter what the body part or what the activity, what the sport is. So there's an acronym we use called ALIVE. So ALIVE. So the AL is active lubrication, and you're just going to spend a minute on each of these. So active lubrication means I'm just going to take that joint through the full range of motion. I'm going to go as far as I can, whether it's my elbow, my shoulders, my knees, whatever the case may be. I'm trying to warm up. I'm going to spend a solid minute going very slowly, purposefully, reaching as far as I can in every direction, and that will lubricate that joint. So that prepares it for the more stressful motions that we're going to do right after that. And then the I and the V are increasing velocity. So if you want to think about it, or if you want to write it down, it's 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. And you're just going to go at those speeds for a minute each. So if I'm going to warm up to run or to sprint, I would go through all of those easy active ranges first. So that active lubrication for about a minute in my legs. Then I would run for a minute at whatever interval for about 25% speed. Then I would do a minute at 50% speed. Then I would do a minute at 75% speed. Then I would go 100%. Then and only then do you do explosive activities. And explosive activities are things that vary in direction forward and backwards with hard stopping. Stopping is much harder on your body than going. That's why going downstairs is much harder on your knees and your joints than going upstairs, because you're stopping your weight coming down. So when you run forward and you stop, which pickleball is a very explosive sport, when you're running sideways, running the sideways is not usually where people get hurt. It's the sudden stop. Or it's not the backpedaling that hurts you. It's the I lost my balance and I fell on the floor, going backwards. That's where you usually get hurt. So that's why that comes last. So any questions about that?
Yeah, so relating this to pickleball, Ben, I guess you would need a lot of side-to-side motion and front to back, because
that's a great question.
Sport.
Yep, it's a great question. So pickleball, you could use the same kind of same warm up for soccer that I do with my son, just a smaller area. So pickleball has a designated square area. So the first thing I would do is you're going to stay facing the same direction. So if you can imagine, this is my court right here, right? This is my square. I would stay facing one direction, and I would go forward and then side shuffle, and then I would go backwards and side shuffle backward direction. So I'm just going to imagine my nose is pointing up while I'm running. I would go this direction, just like this, 25%, and then 50, and then 75. And then I would do it as fast as I can right after that. For diagonals, you start in the middle of the court and you go to the upper corner to the right, to the upper corner to the left, to the lower corner to the right, and lower corner to the left. And after you've done that, you've now mimicked your activity, which is what an ideal warm-up is you want to mimic the activity that you're going to be doing. So after you've done that, you've gone in every direction. You've gone forward, backwards, both sides, and you've gone at all your diagonals. There's really nothing else you're going to encounter, during that game that you haven't done in your warm-up at that point.
The arm that you hit with.
Yeah, absolutely. So same thing. So going back to that framework. So if you're going to do shoulders, so you would just go forward. So you'd reach all the way back. I'm going to lubricate. And now this actively is not the same thing as me reaching up and doing that and pushing myself farther into a deeper range. So see the difference? This is me lubricating a joint. This is me stretching really hard. This is me stretching really hard. Does that make sense? So if I can do it actively with that arm, it's not a stretch, because I can make it go through that range. That's just available range of motion to me. So same thing. So I would go up and down, out to the side, and then up and down this way. Or just mimic your motion. So these are actually neurological patterns. So this is D1 and D2, flexion and extension. This way, up and out. So this way, up and out. This way, over and back, which would be forehand, backhand for tennis or pickleball players.
but I do exactly what you just said with my paddle arm.
Yeah, same thing. So what you're going to do, you'll do this for a minute. So this would be a pattern. You go up. It's just like putting a sword in your sheath and taking it back out. So you're going up. Now I've got my sword up in the air. Now I'm going to put my sword back in. I'm going to take my sword out and put my sword back in. And same thing this way. I've got out here, up there, out here, up there. So go very slow and purposeful for a minute. Then grab your racket and go at 25% speed. Then go at 50% speed, and then 75, and then 100. Same framework.
So pickleball is really a low sport when you think about it. The ball does not bounce like a tennis ball does, and so you are having to bend your knees quite a bit, throughout the entire match. I mean, is this where you'd say don't do lunges ahead of time? Is there anything that you can do to get those points to the knees and ankles? And what would you suggest?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we need to fix in most players when they come in, I think you'll be able to see me if I go back here far enough, and I've got these earphones in, so you can probably see me. So can you see me? Yeah, you can see my feet from there. You see my feet? Okay. Okay. So if you see my feet, this is what you see most people's squat pattern look like. They'll go down, they're going straight down, and see my heels come up?
Yes.
Okay. So that is an incorrect squat pattern. They don't have a hip hinge. So what happens when you're playing games like that is I've got way more stress on my knees than I really need. And then to get the rest of the way down, I can't go any further than that with my knees, really. Most people don't have the strength to. So now I've got to round my back to get down to that ball. And that's when you start seeing lower back injuries and things like that. So what we actually want to teach is a hip hinge. So the first thing that should go backwards is your hips. And this is a great way to practice. You can practice this movement at your house. So this is a wall here, but pretend this is a wall back here. So what I want to do is put this about 12 to 18 inches away, and I want to touch it with my hips. So that's much different than that, because I'm just dropping my weight straight down doing that. This is a hip hinge. When I do this, it's all on my kneecaps, and I'm stressing my ankles and my lower back. When I do this, it's all glutes, and it's big, really strong, secure muscles that's carrying all the weight. So if you can learn that hip hinge, you're going to have much lower range of motion. Well, I can show you actually. So if I go, keep in mind, I am 40 now. So, so if I go the way that you're not supposed to, but the way most people do, I can go I get stuck right there. That's about as far as I can go, which is from what I can feel, probably not quite 90 degrees. I'm probably not quite 90 to the ground right there. If I do a hip hinge and I sit back, I can sit all the way down.
Wow.
And it's pretty comfortable back here. And my feet did not come off the ground. So if I hip hinge back like that, and you'll see my spine is still pretty neutral. I'm not like this. Because this is carrying my weight.
Well, you do hear a lot about, my hips, my knees. And, one of the things that we talk about all the time is who has more contraptions on them. Like who's got more elbow pads, wrist pads, knee pads, things around their waist and everything else. There's more contraptions on them than,
Yeah.
But
most people don't get their hips and their glutes engaged very well. But if you can learn that, it does several things. One is it obviously prevents injury because now you're having your big muscles carry the brunt of the load, which is what you want. And then two, it makes you a more explosive player because you're not just using your quads and your smaller. I mean, your quads are pretty big, but they're not strong compared to your glutes. I mean, the amount of weight you can do on a knee extension machine is probably, for me, it's probably less than 20% of what I can do with the hip thrust. I mean, I can probably do 5 to 6 times the weight with my hips than I can with my quads.
Wow.
So if I can learn to do that in a game, you can imagine how much more just bounce I have on the floor and how much farther I can move laterally side to side. That's the other thing about your glutes is there's 3 different glutes. There's your glute min, med, and max, and they do different ranges of motion. So they're not only explosive forward to backwards and up and down, they're also explosive side to side and diagonally. So learning to engage your glutes should be a huge focus for any running or sprinting athlete, especially the ones that are multi-directional, tennis, soccer, pickleball, basketball, all that.
And Ben, that a lot of pickleball injuries come from falls.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but by being more balanced and using the glutes and moving around the court, you're more in control than you are if you're a little more upright, leaning toward a shot.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when you lower your center of gravity like that, you're much harder to. First of all, you're much harder to knock over, but
Right.
you also have access. I'm gonna be weird and take my shoe off. But if I squat down and now my squat looks like this, then I've got about this much of my foot on the floor. When really, when you're running and you're doing stability, it should be about this much foot on the floor. When sprinters hit the ground, we've always heard run on your toes when you're a kid, but that's not right. That's not what Usain Bolt does. That's not what all of the high level sprinters do. They actually hit the ground right here, midfoot. So you should have this 2/3 of the foot on the ground, really. But you can't do that if you're not hip hinging in multi-directional sports, because you don't have the range. You're not in the range to do that. So that was a long way of saying yes, your balance is better if you get better glute engagement.
Yeah, and the lower center of gravity, like you said, as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, the other thing that comes to mind for me with especially with topspin being so important in pickleball, when you're driving the ball from the baseline, you got to get down and you can explode up through that ball, and get more topspin on it. Plus, it sounds like it's a healthier way to on your body to do it.
It is. It is. It definitely is.
I think too many of us, myself included, we play too much upright, and instead of trying to get down in that position.
Yeah, and if you're relying on your knees to do that, you can't stay down in that position. It's just impossible. You feel like you're weak when you do that. You feel like you can't. I'm too out of shape. My knees hurt too much. I've got too much arthritis. I've got, all these things. That's not the case. The case is that you're exacerbating those problems by using a poor movement pattern. So you're forcing yourself to use something that's weak and painful. What else? Y'all got any other questions before we move right along?
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead, but so what are the solutions? Is it doing the squat to build up the glutes? Is that, what kind of an exercise could a pickleball player do to kind of build up the right muscles, and also teach the body of kind of how to be in a more stable, balanced position?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can actually show you a series real quick that we do when we're getting people to try to find their glutes, because I can tell you most people can't even find them. I mean, they can find them in a mirror, but they can't fire them, as far as how they're going to do it that way. So, and this is great for really any age. And it's also, it's exceptionally good for, I would say, anybody 40 plus that sits a lot during the day. When you sit, your glute activation just really goes away. So if you drive, if you sit, if you have an office job, whatever the case may be. So the first one is just what I showed you. You're going to put something behind you. You're going to work on that movement pattern. You're just going to try to touch it with the back of your hips. Don't let your toes come way up. You'll realize at first that you can't do it. You'll feel like, oh, the only way I can do that is get my toes to come up. And then you'll realize, oh, that's how you hinge. Okay. So you're going to put your arms across your shoulders and you're going to hinge back as far as you can. And it's going to feel kind of odd to you at first, but as you do it, you'll be able to really go down. You'll realize I'm really stable here. My whole foot's on the ground. I'm not uncomfortable. I feel muscle burn here and maybe on the inside of my thighs, but I don't feel any in my knees. There is no pressure in my knees right now. And I've had ACL surgery and I don't know, up to 1 million miles of running around chasing my kid playing a soccer ball. So there should be if I was doing it wrong. So if I lay down right here on the floor, you guys still see me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. So the first one is just a bridge. So you're going to bridge up. So you're just going to raise your hips off the ground. And then what you want to try to do is imagine that your belt buckle is coming back toward you. So you're trying to touch your belt buckle and your belly button together. And you'll really feel your glutes engage when you do that. Hold it until you feel your glutes burning so that you know you're engaging them. And once that gets really easy, you just pick a foot up. So then you can alternate sides. Once that gets easy, then you start hopping off the floor.
Wow.
So you're just bouncing into the ground. You're just driving yourself into the ground. and switch legs. And if you get to where you can do that, you can feel your glutes. You'll know that you feel them.
I thought
And
you were going to say when it gets easy, then you lift both legs up at the same time.
well, you can. You actually can spring both legs into the ground. That's a much more complicated movement. That's for probably not for the purposes of this particular podcast. But that's a really easy series you can do, and that's a great one for people to do anyway. I mean, just for their core and low back health.
Yeah, that's great advice. And for anybody that sees this and they're working with either a physical therapist or just, when they're working out, they have somebody that they work out with. Those are the kind of good things that they can talk about and make sure that they're doing these things correctly.
Yep, absolutely.
And here's pickleball.
Yep. And just a real quick, just general information. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of when you go to work out, it's, you do 3 sets of 12 or 3 sets of 15 or whatever. That didn't just come from nowhere. I mean, we didn't just make that up. There's actually a reason that you do that many. So it takes about 45 seconds of constant tension to really cause muscle growth and strengthening. So when you do a rep and you go up for a second and then you lower it for 3 seconds, that's about 4 seconds. And if you do that 12 times, that's 48 seconds. So it gets you past that 45-second mark. So I tell people most of the time start off, the first one I did was isometric hold. I just raised my hips up and I held it there. Hold it for 45 seconds. Do that 3 times. Once that gets too easy, switch to one leg because you'll double the weight. I mean, it's the same amount of weight, but half of the number of legs. So you've doubled the amount of tension on that leg. Get to where you can do that 3 times for 45 seconds. And then once you do that, then you start doing the lowering up and down. Then you start doing the explosive movement and you build yourself up from there. But for most people, just getting to where you feel your glutes burn, it'll be the first time you feel your glutes burn for some people ever. And for many people, the first time in years. So once you pass that mark, then you can start venturing out into some of these more elaborate glute programs. You can find them all over the place. You can YouTube them. They're everywhere. So, but until you can fire that muscle, it doesn't do you any good because you don't know what you're working out. You can't feel it. So feel it first and then move on to the more challenging things.
So Ben, what I'm hearing you say really is that you're saying that your glutes are really what's most important to maintain your lower body strength. Yes,
they are the biggest muscles, the most stable muscles, hips down, for sure. And you can also tell that by anatomically with bone structure. I mean, what's the most stable part of your legs? It's your hips. I mean, they don't move. I mean, your pelvis does not move, at all. And the only thing that does move is those ball and sockets from your hip joints. But the rest of it is fused together. That's because it's like a basement in a house. It's the stable foundation that those bigger muscles can push off of and pull onto. It's not going to move. It doesn't move once it's forced.
Does your core muscles play a part in helping, with the stability?
Yeah, for sure. So most people, contrary to popular belief, do not actually have weak core muscles. They have poor core control. So their muscles are strong enough. As far as if they weren't, you wouldn't be able to stand up. You would just fall over, right? So your core is strong enough to hold you up. I mean, you can bend different directions, and when you think about how much weight that is, it's it's 40% of your body weight from the waist up. So it's holding up a lot of weight. It's not weak. It's that it's not coordinated. It's not a coordinated movement. And do you know what muscles that physical therapists say are included in your core? Your glutes. So
really?
they're part of your core. Yeah, because glute activation, I'll demonstrate. So glute activation, this is called Daffy Duck butt. So also known as, this is like knees in, butt out. This is also known as teenage girl texting stance. So that is zero glute engagement. Zero. Okay. They're not engaging their glutes at all. So when their glutes aren't engaged, they internally rotate and you get this weird knee pattern, which already is exaggerated in girls anyway. That's why we spend a lot of time with girl athletes, teach them how to jump and run and engage their glutes so they don't get an ACL tear. And then so if I do that, now I have no glute engagement. If I fire my glutes, it tucks my hips in. Now my spine's in line. That's why it's a core muscle, because it affects your core alignment.
Is there one particular injury that you see more than any other with pickleball?
Yeah, so I see, of course, tennis elbow. Of course, that's going to be a big one. I see falls. So I see a lot of hand, wrist injuries.
Yeah.
Of course, there's general shoulder irritations. I mean, but not as much as I would think. Not as much as tennis and not as much as baseball.
Right.
It's at shorter motions. It's not as forceful and it's a little bit shorter motion. So, and a lot of pickleball is finesse. It seems like there's more finesse. I mean, there's some power to it too, but you get a lot of, like these dink battles that go up just kind of by the net where it's just like, like I'm just barely tapping it and I'm really guiding the ball where I want it to go. So it's not as much of, I mean, when I'm throwing a baseball, I'm throwing as hard as I can, if I'm pitching every time. But pickleball is not that way. Tennis is kind of the same way. So yes, some shoulder injuries, but I would say more so a lot of plantar fasciitis, a lot of tennis elbow, pickleball elbow, we'll call it. And I would say that's probably the two biggest ones, other than just general falls and falling and hurting something.
Yeah, we always say, Ben, it's hard to run full speed on the pickleball court. I mean, you can do it for a short burst, but it's not like on the tennis court where you got way more ground to cover, longer burst, or football or basketball where you got to run full speed for a longer amount of time. So
yep, that's right. That's exactly right. Yep. So back to the like the tennis elbow and the plantar fasciitis. That's where when you get into some of this post game. So, and that's really so we talked about how do you warm up, and then we talked about what's the most important way. How do you play? You want to play with a good strong core, good strong foundation. That's mostly your glutes. Okay. So now that you're done, what do you do so that you're not hurting next time you come on the court? And how can you take advantage of your body's adaptive mechanisms so that you can come back stronger? So recovery is not, this is what recovery is in most people's mind. Most people's minds think that recovery is, I want to get back to where I was. That's not what good recovery is. Good recovery is I took advantage of my body's adaptive mechanisms so that now I'm stronger and more durable than I was than the last time I played. So we don't really call it the right thing. I don't know of a better word, but recovery is a little bit misleading. So remember that two-way neurological street that we talked about, earlier in this podcast. How do you take advantage of that? So now your body is very receptive after you've done these really high velocity movements. So how do you take advantage of that? So, I'm going to show you 3 stretches for tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. I mean, you can get it from your backhand too. Just depends on what your form looks like. So the first one is just a prayer stretch. You put your hands together and you want your fingers to be wide. So if you're doing it like this, so let's do the at home game. Everybody put your hands together like this with your fingers flat. Okay. And then, you're going to do just like you're praying and then push down that way until you feel a stretch in your palms. Right? You can feel it. It's not like maybe the most intense thing ever. Okay. So everybody just relax. Now spread your fingers way apart. Okay. Now go down. Okay. And then push your fingers over. I'm going to get my little closer to the camera. Push your fingers over one direction and then push them back the other direction. And you'll feel it different. It's different.
It is.
So it's a deeper stretch. So so the motion I'm doing is this. It's not this. So it's not like this. It's like this against my finger. So I'm doing that and that.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So when you get down here, you do that and that, because tendonitis, itis just means inflammation. Arthritis is joint inflammation. Okay. Tendonitis is tendon inflammation. Bursitis is bursa inflammation. So it just so that you know, just general anatomy knowledge there. So it is just inflammation of a tendon. So tendon attaches muscle to bone. So if it's tendonitis, it's where this muscle belly attaches to this bone right there. That's all it is. So if you take the other end of the muscle and you stretch it, which is what we're doing with this back and forth, you get less of that. So number 2 is I'll turn sideways. So put your thumb, I'll do it this way. Grab your thumb that way in your hand. That. Yep. And then tilt your thumb down and away from you. Yep. So you feel it pretty tight, kind of right through the top of your arm right there.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep.
Yep. So those are muscles that are really, really commonly tight in players. And the last one is a nerve stretch. So you can get tightness or impaired muscle activation from a couple of different things. One of them is called neurological tightness. So take your racket hand, your forehand hand, okay? You're going to go out to the side, straight out. And you want to not let your shoulder ride up like that. So be sure you keep your shoulder down and your hand flat. So kind of look over at your elbow, make sure it's about shoulder height, and then tilt your hand back away from you. Okay. For some people, they'll feel numbness and tingling just doing this, just that motion right there. They'll feel it. Okay. And if you don't feel it quite yet, you can look kind of down and away, and you'll probably feel it then. So be sure you keep your hand pretty high, like up like that. Okay. So you have your radial, your median, and your ulnar nerves that all come down. You hear people that get carpal tunnel. Okay, your carpal tunnel is right here in the palm of your hand. It's not in your wrist. It's right here in the kind of the palm area of your hand. That's an entrapment of a nerve. But not only does it pass there, it passes through here, and it passes through here, and it comes from your neck. So you can stretch out the whole length of that nerve doing that. So you'll go down, and then you go all the way back forward. So this is as short as you can make it, and this is as long as you can make it. And eventually, after you do that for a while, after you play, all that numbness and tingling will go away. But if you can have a healthier highway, you can send more cars down it, right? Highway's in good shape, you can send more cars down it. Not only that, but it sends better cars back up too. It sends more cars back up the highway. So that helps with muscle activation, pain, regulation of just your general motor pattern that you have in your arm, keeping those nerve pathways healthy and limber, and lubricating them as well through those paths they go through.
As far as your lower body, do you promote anything with like foam rollers or any kind of you talked about stretching more when you're finished. What are some of the things you might do for your lower body, for your glutes, for your calf muscles, things that really get a good workout during the course of a couple hours of pickleball?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with foam rolling. I think that some people that do it probably do it too much. You really don't have to do it super aggressively and super intensely. So on a scale of 0 to 10, if 0 is I don't feel anything, and 10 is I signed up with Helga the Destroyer for my massage therapist, and she's trying to kill me, then go for like a 3 or a 4. You don't have to go just super intense with the foam rollers and the Theraguns and all that kind of stuff. That's really, really not super duper necessary. And then
long way, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's right. Doesn't take a whole lot. And then the other thing that I will tell you is back to your glutes. There's another set of muscles that are underneath your glutes called your piriformis. So y'all can do this with me. So cross your ankle over if you can. So put your ankle over your knee and sit up really tall, and then put both hands on that knee.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pull your knee across. So pull it straight across that way. And then pull it up towards your opposite shoulder. So kind of up and across. And you're going to feel it really tight kind of in the back of your glutes right there. For most people, it's really tight. We stretch our, this is something I do every day. I mean, not even the days that I play or do anything. I do it every day because it affects your posture so much. So that's a piriformis stretch. You can do it both sides. You can do it in chair. You can certainly do it laying down. Yep, that's no problem at all. And then the other one that I would tell you, and Jeff, this is actually something I showed you because this is something that's really common with the plantar fasciitis crowd, is your calf has 2 different muscles. So it's got that gastroc back here that's like kind of that ball that everybody thinks about as your calf muscle. Then underneath it's got your soleus. So the way that you stretch your gastroc, be right back. Let me grab something so I can show you. Okay, so if I was going to do a gastroc stretch, that's going to be with my knees straight and standing up. So I'll put my toes on something. I'll put my heels on the ground and I'll lean forward. I may hang onto a wall right here and kind of lean into the wall. And I'm going to feel that more in that ball maybe even up into my hamstring area, because that's where your calves attach. They actually come up past your knee and attach in your lower femur right there. The one that people don't do is called your soleus. And the way you stretch that is you put your knee at 90 degrees. And you should be able to go forward with your heel on the ground about 4 to 6 inches past your knee. So you can see my knee is well past my toes right here, but my heel is still on the ground. If you get to like right here and your heel starts coming up, that means your soleus is really, really tight. And that's going to make it really hard to stay in this position, this good athletic position, because your toes are going to want to do this because you don't have the range to do that. And if I'm doing this, now all my weight's in the balls of my feet and it's up towards the front of my toes, and that's where the fascia underneath my foot attaches, and now it's on constant stretch, which is why you get plantar fasciitis. So, pop quiz a minute ago, what does itis stand for?
Inflammation.
Inflammation. So if it's plantar fasciitis, then what is it?
Inflammation.
Inflammation of your plantar fascia. That's it. So you're just irritating it because you don't have the range. It's on constant load because you can't get off of it because your soleus is too tight.
People who are not in the field like you don't realize how connected our body is from head to toe. You know, where one thing affects 2 or 3 other things. You know, you may have pain in one place, but it's really not maybe where the pain is originating from.
That's right. So Ken, you and I are going to play an at-home game real quick, okay? I'm going to teach you something, and you're going to start predicting the answers, and I'm not going to have to tell you what they are. Okay?
Okay.
No pressure, but I've never had anybody get this wrong, Ken.
Oh, well.
Okay.
It's always the first.
Okay, so I just want you to think, just listen for just a second, and it'll make sense, I promise. So listen for just a second. So you talk about your body being connected and it being in a pattern. So I happen to think, just personally, that's from intelligent design. Not everybody has that same view, but that's my view. So if you look at your fingertips, okay. So I'm going to look at my fingers, so my knuckles. So every joint in your body is either built to be mobile or built to be stable. They have a primary responsibility. It doesn't mean that they can't move, and it doesn't mean that they can't lift weight, but primarily the way that they're built lends itself towards either stability or mobility. So stable, being firm, moving only one direction maybe, or mobile, moving all over the place, allowing for lots of degrees of freedom, okay? So my fingers, if you had to guess, okay, mobile or stable, because forward, backwards, up and down, I can even turn them, I can twist them. So is that more mobile or stable?
Okay.
That's mobile. Okay, so mobile, okay? These bones in my hands, I mean.
That's more stability. Huh?
More stability, okay? So mobile, stable. My wrist, forward, backwards, up and down, I can turn it.
Mobile.
Mobile. So mobile, stable, mobile. Elbow, up and down. That's it.
Mobile.
So up and down one direction.
Stable.
Right?
So maybe stable, I guess.
That's right.
Huh?
Yep. So mobile, stable, mobile, stable. So what do you think shoulder is?
Mobile.
Yep. So mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile. What do you think the next one is? I'm not even going to tell you what the joint is. What do you think it is?
Stable.
What do you think the next one is after that?
Mobile.
What do you think the next one is after that? You're right.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah. Your whole body from your toes all the way up to your head is an alternating pattern of mobility and stability. So every mobile joint has a stable joint on both sides, and every stable joint has a mobile joint on both sides. Wow, injury happens.
I never ever knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody does. You're one of, I don't know, 100 people. But I don't know how many people know that. Probably a bunch. But it's not super well-known knowledge. But what happens is when a mobile joint tries to be stable and take too much load, you get injuries like tendonitis and muscle tears and things like that. When a stable joint becomes too mobile, you get things like LCL tear, ACL tears, ligamentous tears. You start getting those kinds of injuries. So that's the way we think about it as PTs when people come in is, okay, are the mobile things being mobile and the stable things being stable? And then can the patient do the pattern, do the motor pattern? And if all 3 boxes are checked, the pain almost always goes away. and the function almost always improves. I can't think of an exception. I'm sure there probably is. I hate to say anything's 100%, but I don't know of one that's not true for. So so the other things that you're going to do after you get through stretching after a game is pop quiz. So pop quiz, what would you guess is the number one deficiency for seniors in their diet? You think it's B12? You think it's whatever? What do you think it is? Take a guess. Everybody take their own guess. So who said that?
Yeah.
Who said protein? So Ken says protein. What do y'all think? The number one dietary deficiency. The number one thing that seniors are missing in their diet. Yep.
I'm going to go with protein as well.
Yep.
I'd probably go with protein.
I have no idea.
Y'all are right. It's protein.
Mm-hmm.
That is the number one dietary deficiency of seniors.
Really?
Yep. Healthy muscle mass is, again, it is one of the key indicators of longevity. So I encourage every senior to supplement at least 30 to 40 grams of protein every day, because most of them are well short of what they need, way short of what they need. And if you're looking for something that like tastes good and you just are going to like, we give our kids Fairlife. It's called Fairlife protein shakes. They're super, super
We were
good.
just talking about that today.
They are so good. Yeah,
We
so
were.
good. Yep.
We had a big discussion about that today.
Yep.
Fairlife specifically.
Yeah, Fairlife. Yep. I really like them. I like the kind of protein that's in it, and I like the way that I like the way it tastes. I've had some terrible ones. Some terrible protein. Back in the day when I was in high school, it was like, all right, I'm going to have a protein shake. Where's my concrete mixer? They're awful. It's just like, I don't know. It's terrible. But
Right.
you just kind of suffered through it. But
So is whey protein, I know there's different proteins, but is one more of a key when you're doing that? Or say you make your own smoothie at home and you're adding, powdered protein.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like whey protein. Whey protein's fine. That's probably the best if you're going to get like a protein powder of some sort. Probably some version of whey protein. The other thing that I would say is whatever it says in the back of the bag, as far as how much water to mix it with, that's fine, but drink that amount of water again, because protein takes extra water to metabolize, so it will actually dehydrate you. And that's not what you want when you're an athlete. So your protein takes a lot of water to metabolize and actually be able to use, in your body. So drink a lot of extra water with it. And if you want to be just super fancy, you want to take it one step farther, drink it with a little bit of saline water. So when you go into the hospital and you are dehydrated, they do not give you water. They do not give you Aquafina or Dasani or whatever. They give you a saline solution that has salt in it. So, and the reason they do that is because your body likes for your blood and your cells to have the same salinity. So that's how the water actually crosses your blood-brain barrier and your cellular walls. That's how it actually gets water into your cells. So if you've ever had the experience of, I went and got a, 32 ounce whatever drink at the Easy Mart, and then like 20 minutes later, I've got to go pee 4 times in the next, hour and a half. That's because your body didn't really absorb any of that water. As a matter of fact, you got rid of it and it pulled electrolytes and salt out of your body. So you may actually be in worse shape now than you were before you drank it.
Wow.
So in some ways, not in every way, but in some ways. So I really like Celtic salt. Celtic salt is better than Himalayan salt. Himalayan salt is, Celtic salt is manufactured in a healthier way than Himalayan salt currently is as of the time of recording this video. I may change my mind on that 6 months from now. But Himalayan salt right now is being mined in places that are pretty high in heavy metals, and there's not a lot of restriction on how they do that in certain parts of the world. And Celtic salt is not. So you're pretty safe with Celtic salt. But you can take Celtic salt and just take 2 or 3 little grains and you just swirl it up in a 16-ounce bottle of water. That's all you have to do. That's all the salt that it takes is to make it a saline solution. So it's not like you got to drink like ocean water, It ain't got to
Where do
taste
you
like
get Celtic salt?
Celtic salt.
Walmart, Amazon. You can order on Amazon. Yeah, Walmart has it. Like a super center will have it. Any kind of local, like a grain store or spice store will probably have it.
So is it with the spices or with the health food?
In Walmart, it's with the spices where the salt is.
Okay.
Yeah, which I know seems counterintuitive because we've always been told that salt dehydrates you, and it does if it's iodized table salt. That's not the same thing. Yeah, it's not the same kind of salt. So anyway,
Okay.
that's just a little bonus.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And can I ask you about real quickly about, because you hear both ways. It does nothing. You hear other people say, oh, it's the best. MSM, glucosamine, chondroitin, collagen.
Yep.
Any of those things really work to hydrate the joints back?
Yeah, so you're going to find all levels of scientific studies that says that they do or don't work. I would tell you that if you think it works, it does. I mean, and I don't mean that like in a facetious way, like it's all placebo. What I mean is that that's so individual. You just kind of have to try it and see. I would say pick a good brand. So, some of the brands of vitamins and things like that are pretty cheaply made, and it'll say it contains 6,000% of your daily vitamin C. Well, okay. Do you need 6,000% of your daily vitamin C? Like, why do you think it really has that in there? It's because it's not bioavailable. Your body can't even use it. So it's going to have 6,000%, but you're going to get 20% of your daily out of it that you can actually use. So your body can't use it. So, brands that we like, one of them is Thorne, Thorne, and they make pretty high level stuff. There's some pretty good ones for kids too, if you have kids. But you want to look for stuff that say methyl in the vitamin in the ingredient list, like the B6s, B12s. You don't want to see something that says like cyano, because that's cyanide. So that's what cyanide comes from. So it's cyanocobalamin. You don't want to see that. You want to see methylcobalamin or methylfolate or something like that. So if you're looking at an ingredient list and you're not sure, flip around the back of it, and if it says methylated anywhere on the thing, or if it says methyl something, 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 that's a better one. That's a higher end one that your body is actually going to be able to use. And the reason that that's important is because not all people can take the building blocks of some of these manufactured vitamins and their body use them. So they need the methylated version. So if you think about it like this, the cheaper version, like if I buy my wife a bicycle off of Temu, then it probably comes not assembled and I have to put it together. And maybe I can, like maybe I have sockets at the house, maybe I don't, that would be like the cyano version. So your body has to take all these parts and assemble them and things like that. And genetically, some people can, but some can't. The methyl ones is like, I got a delivered bicycle with a bow on it. I can ride the bicycle. Anybody can ride the bicycle. So it just takes a lot of that guesswork out. So one of the questions, so this is going to be some troubleshooting. So these are going to be things you're going to run into as a pickleball player. How do I know when I'm sore versus when I'm hurt? So is it hurt or is it sore? That's what we get across all sports things, right? So the first rule of thumb is if it happens really close to a bone, it's more likely to be irritation and itis or early onset of injury, because that's the ligament or the tendon that's attached to a bone. So like with tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, if I'm sore here right by that bone, that's irritation of the tendon or the ligament, depending on what sport I'm doing. If it's up here in the muscle belly, probably just soreness. I mean, especially if it's not super intense, severe pain, then it's muscle soreness. So muscle bellies get sore. Tendons and ligaments don't get sore. They get hurt. So that's the number one rule. And then the other rule is if I'm thinking about trying to get back to playing, and I want to know how do I ease myself back into this, I just don't let my pain levels go more than about 2 levels out of 10 above where I am right now. So what that means is if I'm a little sore and achy and I'm a 2, I'm just not going to play past a 4. I'm not going to let my pain go past about 4 out of 10. If I'm a 3, I'm not going to play past a 5. If I'm a 0, I'm not going to play past a 2 or maybe a 3. So that's kind of how you do that. And I'm not an advocate of long rest periods. So I'm an advocate of getting back moving and getting back and playing as fast as you can, because your body rolls over that collagen, back to the collagen conversation. Almost all of your body is made out of protein and collagen. Okay. So your hair, your nails, your eyes, your organs, your blood vessels, your veins, your arteries, your bones, they're all made out of protein. Bone is mostly protein, by the way. So if you have like thinning bones or osteopenia, osteoporosis, that kind of thing, you will see that a lot of those patients have super deficient diets in protein, because they can take all the vitamin D and all the medication like that they want to replace that bone density. If they're not eating protein, they can't make more bones. It's not super complicated. So it's made out of protein. You got to eat some of it. Your body does not produce protein. Okay. It doesn't make it. You have to eat it. So that's the main part of that. And then, let's see what else. Oh, when do I use ice versus when do I use heat? So ice, if you feel like you're going to be really sore, or you have an injury, ice the first 72 hours. Heat is fine after that.
How often do you work out your glutes? Would you do that on your off days? Or would that be kind of a regular interval that you would do it after a pickleball, a 2-hour pickleball episode, that you would then work those muscles, or you just do it on your off days?
Yeah, I would do it on the days that I'm not going to play super hard. You want to warm them up for sure on the days you're going to play. And it depends on the intensity of the workout. So if you're going to do something like I just showed you, where it's just more like an activation series, I'm trying to find them, I'm trying to fire them, you can do that every day. I mean, you're not going to hurt a thing, doing that. If you're going to get to where you're, deadlift, I mean, my wife is, I mean, Jeff has seen, well, you haven't met my wife yet, have you?
No.
She's about, 5'3", 128 pounds, something like that. And she can deadlift 315.
Wow.
She doesn't need to do that every day. I mean, there's got to be some rhyme or reason to it then, but she could do that glute activation series every day. You can do those stretches every day, especially after you play. You just don't want to stretch heavy right before you play. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to do a super heavy workout, at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm going to play a match and, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So just a little bit that's just common sense. I mean, if you think it's right, it probably is.
Well, cool. This is great. I've really learned a lot from talking to you. You're so knowledgeable. It's amazing.
Yeah, really absolutely. Well, this is what we do every day, all day long. So.
Oh, I just thought you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, I do that too.
All right, crew. That was a great interview with Ben. Ben, thanks a lot for being here. It was really a pleasure. I know I learned a lot. I heard Ken say he learned a lot. Thanks again for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoyed it very much, and be glad to do it again. And if you think of any other crazy questions, like I said, I don't mind making up answers. It's all good.
All right, great.
So,
come back and see us.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
man.
Sir. Appreciate it.
All right.
Y'all have a good evening. I'm going to head out.
All right, Ben. Thanks again.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Hey, from the Pickleball crew, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Well, that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave any comments and please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again and see you next week.